Zambia, and welcome to the fourth quarterfinals of the Smart Voices Debate, Season 2, sponsored by Zambia Revenue Authority. My name is Chansi Sikaze, and I'll be your host for this season. Today's motion is, and I quote, "This House believes that tough border checks encourage smuggling among small traders." And I repeat, this House believes that tough border checks encourage smuggling among small traders. Proposing to this motion is St. Ambrose Boys, and opposing to this motion is Katowa Secondary School. I will now read the rules of this debate. No religious references, quotations, or concepts will be allowed. Physical evidence is allowed, which includes a demonstration of evidence and shall be handed over to the adjudicator. Handwritten, printed, or published materials. The following items are prohibited in the preparation room: mobile phones, particularly smartphones, cameras, tablets, MPCs, MP3 players, and anything that can store data electronically and or connect to the internet. All phones must be on silent. The sequence of the debate is as follows. The first speakers on each team present their arguments for 4 minutes, no interjections. The second and third speakers will speak for 3 minutes. Interjections will be allowed. The speaker summarizing will be allowed 4 minutes, no interjections. Interjections will be allowed after the first 1 minute of a speaker taking the floor. Each interjection will be done within a minute. A speaker can only be interjected twice. The moderator will enforce the rules allowing or rejecting interjections or calls for supports. The timekeeper will pause the speaker's time when there's an interjection. A team can propose to support a speaker after an interjection. Let's get right into it. I will now call upon the first speaker from the proposing side.
In the wise words of Barack Obama, the future belongs to the young people with the imagination and the education to create. I, Emmanuel Chunga, stand here as the icebreaker proposing to the motion which states, as I quote, "Tough border checks can encourage smuggling among small traders." Before I go any further, allow me to acknowledge the presence of the authorities that make this debate session a success. The adjudicators to whom I bow, the moderator to whom I salute, and the timekeeper to whom I say, "Keep time to give for his teaching time, saves 9, and in simplicity, all protocol is held as prestige." As the icebreaker, allow me to begin by defining the key terms that make up this motion. Border checks are official inspections of people, vehicles, and goods at international borders to verify identity, check travel documents, and prevent unauthorized entry. Smuggling is the illegal, secret movement of goods or people across a border or between places to evade laws, taxes, or regulations. A small trader is an individual or a small enterprise that buys and sells goods on a limited basis, typically with low revenue and few employees. May good Samaritan pass on to the judges for further clarification. Tough border checks are implemented to ensure that there is vigilant enforcement of the law. However, these tough border checks can still encourage smuggling among small traders. How, one may ask? Members of the auditorium, allow me to take you through my first point, which is lack of awareness. Small traders may not be fully informed about the existing facilitation regions like COMESA that could benefit them, leading them to assume that the formal process is more difficult or expensive than it actually is. To show that I am a speaker that speaks from within and not from without, here's a piece of evidence that backs up my point. May good Samaritan pass on to the judges for further clarification. Members of the auditorium, let me take you through my next point, porous borders. In many regions, physical borders are extensive and porous, making it difficult for officials to monitor all potential crossing points and allowing informal routes to flourish. To show you again that I am a speaker that speaks from within and not from without, here's another piece of evidence that backs up my point. May good Samaritan pass on to the judges for further clarification. Members of the auditorium, corruption and unofficial payments are another cause of smuggling by small traders. If border officials are corrupt, small traders may feel forced to make unofficial payments to clear their goods, which can undermine the formal trade process. Once again, to show you that I'm a speaker that speaks from within and not from without, here's another piece of evidence to back up my point. May good Samaritan pass on to the judge for further clarification. Small traders avoid quotas, which is a restriction imposed on the importation and exportation of certain type of goods. They also avoid border checks because most of the time, the customs duty that is paid is too high. For example, A used car with the engine type ranged between 1,500cc and 2,500cc has a specific duty of 60,000 kwacha, which for a small trader is trying to start up a car, which is trying to start up a car selling business, may only have funds to pay for the car and not for the specific duty, and may attempt to smuggle the cars to avoid costs. With these clear and articulate points, I rest my case.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for breaking down the motion for us. I will now call upon the first speaker from the opposing side.
Your tax, my tax, our destiny. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady, for calling upon a beautiful intellectual like me. Before I go any further, allow me to pass my humble and sincere greetings to the following people. To the chairperson, the judges, and my lovely audience, I greet you all. As the first speaker from the opposing side, I stand here strongly opposing to the motion which states, as I quote, "This House believes that tough border checks encourage smuggling among small traders." End of quotation. As the icebreaker, allow me to define the key terms in our motion. Firstly, tough. This means firm or severe. This is according to the Oxford Popular School Dictionary, page number 429. Secondly, smuggling. Bringing goods into or outside a country secretly or illegally. This is also according to the Oxford Popular School Dictionary, page number 380. In support of my point, may the Good Samaritan do as wise. Thirdly, border checks. The act of checking goods that come in and go out the country. Lastly, small traders. These are people who trade on a small scale. This is according to an internet extract. Members of this auditorium, the Zambian Revenue Authority has also put in place some measures at the border checks. To mention but a few, firstly, requirements for valid tax clearance for all customs. This measure provides for requirements for valid tax clearance certificates as a precondition for accessing customs and excess initiatives. Secondly, harmonizing the legal provisions for pre-clearance. Members of this auditorium, I strongly oppose to this motion because tough border checks are not meant to encourage smuggling, but to ensure that traders follow the right procedures. Secondly, smuggling reduces government revenues and undermines the economic sustainability of legitimate businesses in the formal sector. Therefore, tough border checks at borders, when effective, it protects the national economy. Members of this august House, the second speaker will further talk about deterrence effect, which involves the primary goal of tough border checks. And she will also talk about formalization as an alternative, which involves tough border check management. The third speaker will further analyze the security imperatives, which includes national security and preventing the movement of prohibited goods. And she will also talk about facilitation of legitimate trade. The fourth speaker will come to summarize what will be articulated by the second and the third speaker. Members of this auditorium, allow me to paraphrase the motion to suit our side of argument. This House believes tough border checks encourage smuggling among small traders. With these few bad convincing points, I submit.
Thank you so much, Madam Icebreaker, for not only breaking but shattering the ice. I will now call upon the second speaker from the proposing side.
I think twice before I speak, because I know my words and influence can plant a seed of success or failure in the minds of another. My name is Prince Mangan, and I'm here to educate you and propose to the education that states, and I quote, tough border checks encourage smuggling among small traders, end of quotation. But before I move any further, it would be rude of me not to acknowledge the presence of the following people. To the judges, I bow. To the chairperson, I salute. And to the timekeeper, keep time ticking because time lost is never recovered. Members of this auditorium, I speak from within and not without. According to ZRA's zero tolerance policy, it actively fights smuggling through increased strict enforcement. But you see, tough checks increase corruption opportunities as individuals have more discretionary powers, which may be abused by administering of goods and services through the border. To make you aware that I speak from within and not without, a parliamentary committee reports about a problem of the scanners by the Churundu border, which are not well interlinked, which leads to smuggling occurring at ease. May the Good Samaritan please pass on to the judge for further clarification. You see, even if scanning is supposed to deter smuggling, the existence of bribery means smugglers may still bypass checks. Furthermore, if scanners are slow, only used selectively or not functional at all times, smugglers may exploit the gaps. You see, Delays in processes, such as documentation and tough checking, is an expense to small traders, as they are charged for late deliveries and expired goods. There's been a report on the Zambian side of the Nakonde border, where fewer trucks were passing through per hour as to the Tanzanian side. May the Good Samaritan please pass it on to the judges for further clarification. Why is it so, members of this auditorium? Well, it is because of the limited operating hours, poor system integration, inadequate border
Point of
infrastructure,
interjection.
and many more.
Point of interjection allowed.
Mr. Speaker, if I'm not mistaken, I've heard you saying talking about scanning. As far as I'm concerned, there was a smuggling case that occurred at Chirundu border post, and they recorded that 4.9 million kwacha was lost. And you're saying that scanning is one of the causes of what's this smuggling. How do you know? But how did they manage to record that 4.9 million kwacha was lost?
Point of order.
Point of order allowed.
It seems you don't understand that you're supporting our point. Take that into consideration.
May the current speaker continue speaking.
In addition, small traders feel this system's tough border checking to be favoring big companies who use good documentations, fast lanes, and many more. Let me rest my case as I quote the mighty words by Napoleon Hill. It is no man can avail himself of the power without availing himself of the mastermind. This case, I rest my quotes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for that articulation. I will now call upon the second speaker from the opposing side.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, for calling out a bona fide, certified, qualified, clarified debater as I am. Before I go any further, allow me to recognize respected judges, timekeeper, and my lovely audience. This House believes that tough border checks encourage smuggling among small traders. I am not totally disputing, but what we are saying is that these tough border checks do not only encourage smuggling among small traders. The case of timber smuggling, in line with export, 4 trucks with timber logs were seized at Chirundu for lacking required forestry export. Revenue loss from this smuggling was 188,000. The figure may appear to be small. However, the trucks themselves were valued at 3.6 million kwacha. If you multiply 3.6 million kwacha by 4 trucks, it's giving us 14.4 million kwacha. The figure itself indicates that this timber smuggling was definitely not among the small traders. To show that I'm a debater who speaks from within and not from without, may the Good Samaritan do as wise. Secondly, members of this House, tough border checks has brought about new processes whereby internal procedures may lack automations, leading to smuggling by both large-scale and small-scale traders. The effect is one and the same for both parties. To show that I'm a debater who speaks from within and not from without, may the Good Samaritan do as wise. In addition, lack of valid tax clearance certificates as a precondition for accessing custom and excise incentives has also contributed to smuggling, but not only by small traders, but both small and large-scale traders. Members of this House, a person without a valid tax clearance certificate is either a small-scale or large-scale trader is forced to smuggle their goods into another country.
Point of
To show that I'm
interjection allowed.
Madam Speaker, I've heard you talking about large-scale traders. This motion clearly talks about small-scale traders, so please clarify your point.
The motion is saying this House believes that tough border checks encourage smuggling among small traders. Not only small traders are the ones that smuggle goods. Members of this House, thirdly, members of this House, the primary goal of tough border checks is not to stop. The primary goal of border checks is to stop smuggling and illicit activities and not to encourage. When the risk of getting caught and the severity of potential penalties are in place, it definitely discourages. Smuggling is often a function of established criminal networks. They exploit any opportunities for profit, irrespective of the specific border policies of small trade.
Point of order.
Point of order allowed.
Are you reading?
No, I'm talking.
Point of defense. As you can see, that's her handwritten. So, Madam Chair Lady, may we be protected?
May the current speaker continue speaking.
This issue is linked to border organized crimes, not just the behavior of small-scale traders responding to regulations. In addition, members of this House, instead of encouraging smuggling, tough border checks can encourage the formalization of trade, providing small traders access to formal benefits like finance and better infrastructure. Lastly, smuggling is a problem that exists regardless of tough border checks. It's often motivated by the desire to make profit. 30 seconds before summary.
30 seconds allowed.
Thank you. It is often motivated by the desire to make profit from trades into prohibited goods or avoid any tax obligations. In this view, tough border control are a necessary response to existing illicit trade, not the cause of it. With these few points, I submit.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for those quotations. I will now call upon the third speaker from the proposing side.
Boundaries are to be broken, doors are to be opened, and limits are to be shattered. But when it comes to the podium, it is simply to be overthrown by the sheer tranquility of the mighty intellectual posted before it by the American couple. For I shall promulgate and propose the motion that states, and I quote, tough border checks encourage smuggling among small traders. End of quotation. Preliminary, it will be our greatest honor to acknowledge the principle of the following. The judges, I bow. The chairperson, I salute. And as to time, a wise man once said, a man who manages time manages his life, for there is no excuse to time. And to members of the jury, observe as I incentivize this prerogative motion. Protocol is highly observed. Numerous studies and reports indicate that tough border checks and complex formal processes encourage smuggling among small traders. When faced with high costs, extensive documentation requirements, and potential corruption at official crossings, many small-scale traders resort to informal routes such as footpaths to evade customs and officials. Members of the jury, as a small-scale trader, high costs and delays encourage smuggling as formal border processes often involve high control costs, processing fees, and significant delays that disproportionately affect small traders with limited capital and perishable goods.
Point of order.
Point of order allowed.
Mr. Speaker, may you please kindly slow down? Relax.
May the current speaker continue speaking.
May good surrender time, please, person the judges. Furthermore, cumbersome documentation as a small-scale trader encourages smuggling as for the documentary requirements for formal clearance can be overly demanding and confusing, leading to non-compliance or a lack of awareness of the correct procedures. May good surrender time, please, person the judges. Members of the jury, international trade helps the nation raise national income through tariffs and taxes. According to the Oxford Dictionary of Current English, a tariff being a tax to be paid on a particular class of imports or exports, and a tax, money that must be paid to the state, charged at a proportion of income and business profits. May good surrender time, please, person the judges. My fellow intellectuals, as a small-scale trader, when these tariffs and taxes are excessively used, it can make legitimate trade prohibitively expensive, leading to small traders to smuggle to avoid costs. Members of the jury, according to a study on custom strategy in Zambia, high tariffs and taxes encourage smuggling by creating a significant price disparity between legal and illegal goods, which incentivizes legal trade to meet consumer demand for cheaper products. May good surrender time, please, person judges. In addition, high tariffs on imports such as alcohol, cigarettes, and other finished goods significantly increases the price in Zambia. This large price gap creates a lucrative profit motive for smugglers to bring in cheaper and untaxed alternatives. And with these well-elaborated and consecrated points, I shall end my proclamation with the wise words of Martin Luther King Jr. In the end, we remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. I raise my case.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for educating us on this matter. I will now call upon the third speaker from the opposing side.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, for calling upon a certified debater as myself. Before I go any further, allow me to lay on the red protocol by my icebreaker. Due to time, allow me to go straight into articulating my points. I strongly oppose to this motion because many of ZRA's 2025 smuggling boats involve high-value goods such as alcohol, preforms, ethanol, and timber. Members of the House, in short, they are sophisticated fraudulent operation indicating that smuggling isn't just small-scale consumer goods. In support of my statement, as I quote from ZRA Smuggling Incidents and Statistics in 2025. At Kazungura border post, ZRA seized 25,200 bottles of smuggled alcohol beverages in October 2025. The revenue loss from that seizure was 7.7 million kwacha. I will pass on the evidence later as I'll be using it for my presentation. Members of the House, the figure itself speaks volumes that this case is not among small traders. Secondly, TAFA checks are presented as essential for national security, preventing the movement of prohibited goods such as weapons, drugs, and people involved in serious organized crimes. Smuggling is often linked to wider criminal networks, or should I say, large-scale traders. In support of my statement, as I quote from ZRA seizures smuggling cases reported in 2025. At Chilundu border post in September 2025, ZRA intercepted 2 trucks at an authorized gate route from the Chilundu OSBP, carrying smuggled alcohol and cosmetics. The estimated revenue loss was 4.9 million kwacha, broken down as alcohol 4.1 million kwacha, cosmetics 805,000
Point
kwacha.
of interjection.
Point of interjection allowed.
Your points are talking about how large-scale traders are able to smuggle, but don't you think the same way the motion is telling us that tough border checks can encourage smuggling among small traders? Your points are focusing on large-scale traders. If you focus on large-scale traders, small traders will still be able to smuggle. So what do you mean by that?
Point of defense.
Point of defense allowed.
What she's trying to say is that smuggling isn't only done by small-scale traders, but also by large-scale traders. So she's not only focusing much on small traders, but even on the large-scale
Point of
traders.
rebuttal.
Point of rebuttal allowed.
You see, the motion clearly says tough border checks encourage smuggling among small traders and not large-scale traders. So you are going out of the motion by everything you're saying here.
Will the current speaker continue speaking?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The other case I'll cite is at Mongo Senanga Road. On 20th September 2025, ZRA intercepted a truck on the Mongo Senanga Road, not a formal border post, carrying alcohol beverages hidden in fish bags. The revenue loss was 7,000 kwacha, another high seizure. Members of the House, tough border checks does not only encourage smuggling among small traders, but also large-scale traders. Thirdly, members of the House, tough checks, when implemented efficiently with modern technology and risk-based assessment, can actually streamline the process for legitimate traders while targeting high-risk trafficking, improving the overall trading environment. According to WCO, World Customs Organization report, ZRA has strengthened risk management and enforcement to encounter smuggling, for example, intercepting ethanol shipments declared as transit, as I quote from my internet extraction. ZRA intercepted a truckload, 30 seconds to summary.
30 seconds allowed.
ZRA intercepted a large load, 32 bulk tanks plus 40 drums of ethanol aluminium powder. This occurred after the Kazungula border. Estimated revenue risk was 1.3 million kwacha. May a good Samaritan do as well? Members of the House, the combined article reported seizures just in the cases above suggests that millions of kwacha are being lost or at risk. This affects both small-scale traders and large-scale traders. With this but convincing point, I submit.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for giving us the facts. Now we are moving on to the last 2 speakers of this debate. I will now call upon the summarizer from the proposing side.
Some are underdogs, others are superiors. I am a superior. I am a visionary. bound to fill the fouls of this intercession, Nathan Chisanga, here to interprospectively propose to the motion that states tough border checks can encourage smuggling among small traders. Before I go any further, it would be so insolent of me not to acknowledge the presence of the following. To the judges, I bow. To the moderator, I salute. To the timekeeper, I say keep time ticking, for time wasted is money gone. In short, all protocol is highly observed. Members of the auditorium, when faced with lack of awareness, porous borders, limited access to information, corruption and unofficial payments, delays and inefficiencies, lack of infrastructure, complex or restrictive regulations, high custom duties, high tariffs and taxes, poverty and unemployment, many small-scale traders resort to using informal routes and evade custom duties. Members of the auditorium, lack of awareness. Small traders may not be fully informed about the existing trading facilitation regions like COMESA, which could benefit them, hence leading them to assume that the formal process is more difficult or expensive than it actually is. Porous borders. In many regions, the physical borders are more extensive and porous, making it difficult for officials to monitor all potential crossing points and allowing for the informal routes to flourish. May the Good Samaritan pass this on to the judges for further analysis. Some small-scale traders at border checks smuggle because the custom duty paid is too high. They also avoid quotas, which is the restriction imposed on the importation and exportation of certain types of goods. Members of the auditorium, when small-scale traders are faced with limited access to information, they might not have access to the accurate information about the regulations, tariffs, and procedures, making it harder for them to comply. Corruption and unofficial payments are other reasons for smuggling by small traders. If border officials are corrupt, small traders may feel forced to make unofficial payments to clear the goods, therefore undermining the formal trade processes. May the Good Samaritan pass this on to the judges for further clarification. Moving on, we next have delays and inefficiencies. Lengthy delays and inefficient processing at borders can lead to increased costs and losses for small traders, making smuggling a more attractive option. Another reason is lack of infrastructure. Inadequate border infrastructure, such as insufficient storage facilities or poor transportation links, can hinder legitimate trade and drive small traders to seek alternative channels. Members of the auditorium, high tariffs and taxes encourage smuggling by creating a significant price difference between legally imported goods and financial incentives for smugglers and criminal organizations to meet the consumer demand for cheaper products. Poverty and unemployment, members of the auditorium. For individuals and families in border regions facing unemployment or low incomes, smuggling can be seen as a way to meet daily expenses and provide for their families. The lack of legitimate economic alternatives can push people into the informal economy and smuggling. In the middle of difficulties lies opportunities. Life is not measured by the number of breaths we take, but by the moments that take our breaths away. With these few points, I rest my case.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for that summary of your delegation's agenda. I will now call upon the last speaker of this debate, the summarizer from the opposing side.
Debate is not all about being bombastic, sarcastic, or using big words. I, Joy Kapalu, hereby oppose to the motion that has already been stated by my first speaker. But due to time, allow me to rely on the already laid protocol laid by my icebreaker and go straight into articulating my points. Members of this auditorium, my second speaker clearly emphasized that tough border checks do not only encourage smuggling among small traders, but the large traders as well, with the point she raised on the timber case. This clearly shows that large-scale traders smuggle as well. Madam Chairlady, members of this auditorium, she further talked about formalization as an alternative. Madam Chairlady, these tough border checks were not brought about to encourage smuggling, but to encourage the formalization of trade, which provides access to formal benefits like finance and better infrastructure for the small-scale traders. Members of this auditorium, tough border checks benefit the small-scale traders because when they take some procedures at the border points, they pay some sort of money which the government removes some of it and builds better infrastructure for them. Madam Chairlady, she further articulated that the primary purpose of tough border checks is not to encourage smuggling, but to deter smuggling and illicit activities. Madam Chairlady, have you just ever thought that tough border checks existed long time ago? But they were not tough as compared to now. Still, people used to smuggle.
Smuggling hasn't started today, but years back. Other people might say it's because of congestion, but members of this auditorium, number of days have been reduced from 5 to 3 within a payment has to be made after assessment, but still traders find means and ways to export goods in and out of the country. Madam Chairlady, the third speaker came in and talked about security imperatives. She clearly emphasized to the point the second speaker stated, saying that tough border checks were not brought about to encourage smuggling. No, but were presented as an essential for national security to prevent the movement of prohibited goods in and out of the country. She further stated that if tough border checks are implemented correctly and evolve modern technology and risk-based assessment with this process brought up, it may help in monitoring legitimate traders while targeting high-risk traffic, which can improve the trading environment. On the other hand, members of this auditorium, the focus should be on addressing the root cause and demand for smuggling by improving the efficiency of formal border processes, reducing corruption, and providing clear information and legal migration or trade opportunities rather than weakening border security. To sum it all, members of this auditorium, the core issue may be a lack of trade facilitation rather than the existence of tough border checks themselves. With these few points, allow me to say I'm from taking a shower. I smell like flowers. When I look at the proposing team, they smell like sour. I rest our case.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for that detailed yet brief and educational summary. Sadly, we have come to the end of this brilliant battle of the brains. But don't go anywhere as the judges tally the results. Who do you think has won? Katoa? St. Ambrose? Stay tuned.
Food security is essential for a healthy and prosperous nation. The Zambia Revenue Authority collects taxes from individuals and businesses. These funds are used to support various initiatives aimed at improving food security. Taxes collected by the ZRA are vital for funding agricultural programs and infrastructure around the country. Tax revenues fund agricultural training institutions as well as training programs for farmers, helping them adopt modern farming techniques and improve crop yields. Investments in irrigation systems and storage facilities ensure that crops are grown efficiently and stored safely, reducing post-harvest losses. Taxes also support the distribution of quality seeds and fertilizers, enabling farmers to produce more food and enhance their livelihoods. Community food programs and farmers' markets funded by tax revenues improve access to fresh, nutritious food for all Zambians. Through these initiatives, taxes collected by the ZRA are helping to grow the agricultural sector, building capacity and enhancing productivity in order to create and maintain food security in Zambia. Zambia Revenue Authority. My tax, your tax, our destiny.
The results are in. The judges have made their decision. It was a fierce battle. Katoa. Katoa Secondary School, you have scored. $695. St. Ambrose Boys Technical Secondary School. Clap for yourselves for taking part in this debate. St. Ambrose boys, you have gathered. You fought a good fight. You applied yourselves fully. But between you and Katoa, we can only have one winner. Therefore, St. Ambrose boys, you gathered. Remember that Katoa, you scored 695, while St. Ambrose, you have scored 836. Therefore, St. Ambrose boys, you move on to the semi-finals. See you next week for another debate. Don't miss it even for the world.